Hello and what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Miguel. You're watching Miguel EDC, the channel where we talk everything EDC gear here. And that's right, today we're doing the Severn review here, finally coming around to gathering my thoughts about this knife after carrying it here for a while. And man, oh man, what a delight. What an experience it has been carrying this thing here since I got it unboxed. By the way, if you haven't seen the unboxing video, check it out here in the channel as well after this one. But yeah, just out of the box, I knew this knife was special. I knew that this was going to be a different experience, and so far it has not disappointed. I'm going to try to probably retain my bias as much as I can, kind of hold myself back, because I will tell you right up front, I am a huge fan, huge fan of WinterBladeCo. Everything that Brian Winters does, everything he builds, all his knives are so unique, so meticulous and different, with so many innovative and revolutionary designs. Overall, the kind of stuff that you don't see anybody else making. That is what Brian Winters is certainly putting out there. This one here certainly no different. Definitely stands by that WinterBladeCo motto, and just the overall engineering and wizardry from Brian himself. He has the ability to crank out these knives that are so unique, so different, with different deployment mechanisms, and very fidgety and amazing quality. Obviously, we're going to get into all of that during this video. This one is going to be a doozy, so sit back, relax, grab your coffee, grab some snack or something, because this one is going to be a fun one, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, this knife and every other knife that you see in this video will be linked down below in the description. Of course, it does help out the channel when you use those links, but that is entirely up to you and at zero extra cost. All right, let's go ahead and get things started here. Right, first things first, let's do our overall measurement on this bad boy here, coming in under 8 inches. It's actually coming in at like 7.85, 7.9, around there. The blade length is going to be around 3 1/4, right? But if you actually measure the cutting geometry or cutting path, it's going to be closer to 2.75 inches. And of course, the handle is going to be closer to a little bit over 4.5, like 4.6, 4.65 inches. Let's of course do some size comparisons on this bad boy. Certainly talking about a large size knife. Not medium, not small, but full size knife indeed. So let's see how it ranks to some of the other knives that I've showcased here in the channel. Knives that you may already own yourself as well. Here's the PM2 and the Para 3 right there. So a little bit bigger than the Para 3 and actually shorter than the PM2, but somewhere in a happy medium, right? Definitely right in the middle between PM2 and Para 3 for sure. Here's the Demko AD 20.5. and the smaller brother, the Shark Cub. And yes, it is bigger than the Demko AD 20.5, one of my all-time favorite knives, right? And of course, bigger than the Shark Cub as well. And this is what I meant, right? So this right here is the Shark Lock, right? So there is some similarities of this one. And again, at the same time, it's nothing like it, right? But the fact that you can work off of the spine of the blade here, right? Also, you could make the argument, right? This next Super Lock works in the same way. It's a spine-based locking mechanism. So it's sort of like a blend of these two knives. So I'll give you a perfect example right here coming up next. So there's the Severn, right? So if you combine, let's say, the Super Lock or Shark Lock with a crossbar lock, right? Like on the Raccoon right there, that's when you end up with the Stealth Lock. And again, it's executed in such a way where the actual, back spine little section there actually tucks away, which is very unique to this locking mechanism by Brian Winters, which I believe is patented by him, of course. So yeah, I mean, it basically has the best of both worlds, that you can operate it as a crossbar lock. At the same time, you can operate it as a spine or back, super lock or shark lock. And at the same time, it hides away so that when you really bear down on the knife, you don't even feel it on your hand at all. So, I mean, when I saw Brian just, show this off and say that he was dropping it, I was like, I got to get on that. Got to jump on that wagon, and I'm glad I did. I was one of the first ones to get an order in, and I'm just counting the days here, hopefully until I get mine here very soon. But yes, you can see it's a little bit bigger than the Raccoon and a little bit shorter than the Civivi Vision FG, or probably about the same, right? So obviously you have a longer cutting length here, which is narrower. Here's a little bit taller. Here's the Civivi Sentinel Strike. the CJRB Pyrite, right? The Pyrite is very popular. And this is a little bit smaller than the Severn. The Sentinel Strike is going to be a little bit, yeah, much bigger by about half an inch or so. And lastly, let's throw in here some other premium knives you should probably consider if you're thinking about the Severn, right? We have the RSKAOS from Vosteed, right? That has the top compression style button lock, right? Which is very good. You also have a flipper with that one and a hole for thumb deployment and reverse flick. And check out the Kunwu Chad, right? It has a longer cutting edge. It has a crossbar lock, and you can thumb deploy it and reverse flick it, right? And these come in for a little bit less money, both of which are actually a little bit longer than the Severn right there. But again, the idea there is just to give you a ballpark, you know, size-wise, probably price range-wise in a way. But all right, with that in mind, let's see. Carry profile, the thickness here against the PM2, right? It's about the same, honestly. The PM2 might be a hair thicker, but not by much. I mean, we're talking about a very, in a sense, you know, it does carry very slim in the pocket, to say the least. Here it is next to the Demko AD 20.5, which has the Shark lock deployment mechanism. There's a lot of similarities in certain ways we're going to get into here in just a moment. But yeah, the Shark lock AD 20.5 is just a little bit slimmer there. Now, as far as how it carries length and height in the pocket, I mean, it's pretty comparable. It is definitely going to be a little tall, right? A little long in the pocket right there, as you can see. Probably not as crazy as the PM2, but, you know, somewhat decently comparable to the AD 20.5. Right, as you can see there for yourself. But again, you know, tons and tons of fun carrying this one. It was not an issue at all. Does carry pretty comfortable in the pocket, to say the least. So what do we have as far as action? What is the action on this knife? Okay, you may have already seen videos on this guy on YouTube already. Maybe you haven't. Right? If you haven't, I'm telling you, you're in for a treat. But this guy is rocking a brand new locking mechanism, engineer put together by Brian Winters himself, and that is the stealth lock, right? Kind of like the name quite a bit, because it definitely has this tab right here. It's kind of like a flipper tab, which kind of hides away. It has a pivot of its own, and it does tuck away whenever you're not using it. So it's stealthy, right? That's where the stealth comes from, wink, wink. And yeah, so it basically works as a spine lock or shark lock sort of knife. You know, it's very similar to, here's the shark lock from Andrew Demko on the AD 20.5, except the main difference is the stealth lock actually collapses or hides the tab away from the, you know, from being exposed, whereas the shark lock is permanently out there. And here's another example, the super lock from Snex, Snex super lock, and same deal, right? Spine-based locking system here. Except it doesn't tuck away, right? It's always going to be out there. So in some cases, some people argue, you know, if you, you know, bear down on your knife, it could be a little uncomfortable. For me, it really hasn't been an issue, but, you know, I think it's pretty neat the fact that on the WinterBladeCo Severn here, it actually does do that little magic trick of, you know, sitting flush or hiding away whenever it's not being in use. Now, that's 50% of the mix there, because the other part is the crossbar or axis lock section going on right here in the middle, right? That may look familiar, and it does look familiar for a reason, because it also works as a crossbar lock knife. So the action on this is amazing. I'm just going to give you a rundown to the different deployment methods. So of course you can use the stealth lock, little flipper tab or spine tab back here, just like that. I'm going to use now the sort of crossbar section, axis lock crossbar section right here in the middle. And that's pretty sweet. So you could use either one of those to deploy and also to retract the blade. Now, additionally, for deployment, we can use the thumb stud right here, which works really good. That thumb stud does have a trick up its sleeve. We're going to talk about that one in just a moment. But yeah, it just sounds so good and satisfying. By the way, another thing this knife really has going for it is the acoustics. I mean, you could sit there and flip this thing for hours upon days, upon weeks, upon months, years on end, and never get bored. At least not me personally. So thumb deployment there is pretty good. Some people might argue the D10 is a little bit weak because it's not actually a D10. It's more of, again, like a crossbar sort of, you know, hold, if you would. But again, I feel like it gets the job done. You're able to build enough tension on your thumb to deploy, which is really nice. And then, of course, you could use the opening right here, which, again, adds a lot of personality to the blade as a whole there. And bam, that reverse flick is money every single time. So definitely, I mean, my kind of knife for sure. I know you guys know what I'm trying to get at, right? With multiple deployment options, with this amazing action, definitely a super fidgety knife, and one that is, you know, has a great, great ease of manipulation, right? You could use it also with both hands. Check this out, my left hand, which typically wouldn't be able to get much done otherwise, is actually getting the knife deployed and such. So yeah, definitely an ambidextrous knife, which is complemented by a pocket clip, which is reversible, which is good, right? As far as pocket clip, it does, you know, it's pretty deep carry for the most part. Not the most deep carry. It does give you enough for you to pinch and pull out of the pocket there. Now, as far as materials go, we have titanium going on the scales, and there's different variants on these models. I know there were some different aluminum ones also being offered. By the way, I know the Severn already went through batch 1, and yours truly actually ordered one. I can't wait to get that one in. We're about mid-June, and these batch 1 Severns are supposed to go out towards the end of July, so I'm excited for that. I cannot wait. And currently, as of today, I double checked, and batch 2, they're still taking orders for batch 2. I think there's only one variant available on there. If it's anything like the Factor went all the way to a batch 3. So if these are the kind of knives that you want to, you know, definitely grab, these come typically on a pre-order sort of approach. Brian Winters and WinterBladeCo being a sort of a small company, right? They just kind of do different batches at a time with pre-orders taking place. So you definitely want to get on these like ASAP, right? Sooner rather than later. Of course, it all depends of when in the future you're watching this video. If it's 2 to 3 years from now, I'm not sure if this knife may still be available. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You know, I personally myself, you know, wish I had picked up a Factor back in the day, and I didn't, because I was just getting started in the journey, so I was still kind of processing being able to justify spending you know, a certain amount of money for a knife, and so I wasn't truly there yet. But when I got a second opportunity to pick up the Severn the second time around, I certainly did. I put in my order last year around November 2023, and now we're in 2024, and about, you know, a little over a month away from hopefully getting mine sent to me. So titanium going on the handles. Again, there's an aluminum version out there. Check all the variants that may be available on the website, link down below in the comments and pin and description. As far as the blade, we have M390 on this one, right, which is pretty neat. I know there were some other budget steels being offered as well. 14C28N, I believe I saw. There were different sort of tiers to the Severn, right? So you could get like the ultimate version with, you know, the M390 with the titanium, or you could sort of get a little bit more budget version, still rocking the stealth lock and everything, but with a more budget steel and, handle material. But M390 here, on the blade, we have a beautiful stone wash, which is going to be different than the one I picked up. The one I picked up has sort of like a laser engraving going on, which I think is pretty neat. And we have black titanium on this one, which the one I picked up is, the bead blasted or just natural gray titanium going on there. So I think it's a good combo, and I can't wait to get that one delivered. As far as this one goes, so this one is a loaner that Brian sent around to the Apex Knife Pass Around. I finally got my opportunity to get my hand on this one, and again, it's just been a blast. As far as the geometry goes, I love the sheep's foot style blade on here. Somebody's gonna say it's a reverse tanto, Miguel. Get it right, it's a reverse tanto. Listen, you do you, whatever makes you sleep better at night, right? We can disagree and still be friends. So that being said, savage looking geometry to say the least. And the flat grind, this is a full flat grind going on here, which is really off the charts. All the way through. Needless to say, the blade itself is very, very slim. The thickest portion is about 0.12, which is about the average in the channel. That translates to 3.2 millimeters. As far as the handle thickness goes, it's around 0.43 or 11.1 millimeters, right? It's a little bit below the average, which is 0.5 in the channel. All right, so those are sort of your width measurements on handle and blade right there. We do have a pokey tip here, which is pretty good, right? Very useful for utilitarian sort of EDC tasks or utility cuts or drug cuts. You could do a little pinch grab to do your package opening, letter opening, cut some cardboard here and there, some rope, whatever it is that your day may throw at you. You're gonna whip out the coolest, most satisfying knife you could possibly be carrying that day, and that's gonna be this guy. And I can tell you from personal experience, I carry this thing a ton, and every time I got an opportunity to cut something, or just go about my day and unboxing packages here and there, and just all my cutting needs, if you would, it definitely delivered on not only the performance but also the satisfaction, which was through the roof, to say the least. So that is the action on this thing. Amazing, to say the least. We're going to come back to that in a moment. The materials are also pretty good as well, as you would expect. The nice sort of pivot, captive pivot on one side adds a nice touch of personality. All the corners are nice and chamfered all around. There's even this section here, kind of adds a little bit of personality. Also gives you access to the thumb stud there, which is cool, which is nice. And then as far as back here, we have one sort of standoff, cylinder, if you would. Same thing here. This one works as a stop pin as well for the blade. Okay, here's a little bit more of that, lock in action, right? You can see how it locks in place like that. This thing is on ball bearings, so amazing smooth action. Very drop shotty, of course, as you would expect. And again, it just sounds so good, so satisfying. Lock up, rock solid. This thing might as well be welded in place. No up and down, no side to side, no pivot lash of any kind whatsoever. The blade is nice and aligned in place, as you can see. You guys be the judge there. And then as far as milling, there is a tiny bit of milling going on each of the scales on both sides. It does help the weight department, of course. And I will say, this is the type of knife that feels just the right weight. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel light. You definitely feel you have a premium piece in your hand. So 4.6 ounces or 131 grams, right? That's kind of the weight that we are looking at here. Just for reference, that 80-20.5 was 4.2, which translates to 119 grams. Somewhat of a pretty similar weight right there, right? Something like the RSKAOS, that's going to be a little bit more, 5.5 ounces or 156 grams. And something like the Chad, right? Just to give you a few other premium knives examples here as far as weight goes, that's going to be 4.9 or 140 grams. But you get the idea there, right? So definitely a good weight for the premium knife that it is, without a doubt. Again, in my carry experience, I didn't find it to be unsatisfyingly too heavy or too light. It was just perfect, and I did not mind the weight at all. So let's then finally do a hardware check. As usual, my tools are highly recommended and linked down below. As per usual here, let's grab my TA bit first. And I can see there's a TA, TA, TA. So all body screws are TA. Let's check pocket clip. Those are TA. And the pivot there is a TA. And even the sort of crossbar access lock low section has a TA screw or pattern right there as well. So yeah, TA all around. That's another W in my book, right? This is certainly a premium knife for a premium price. So give me the T8s. I think Brian understands, right? The knife community demands T8s over T6, especially on a premium knife, right? No more of that T6 nonsense on a premium knife. So that was definitely the right call there. So let's talk more so meats and potatoes, I guess, right? Finally get into the nitty gritty stuff about this knife. So where do we even begin? I mean, I've already covered some areas, of course. The action on this thing is amazing, right? Very, very fidgety, very, very satisfying. Okay, the stealth lock is a little bit of a cross between the, sort of like a spine lock or shark lock and a axis lock or crossbar lock, right, which is nice. The one of the pros in here is that, unlike a typical crossbar lock knife, like the Raccoon here, for example, right, typically crossbar lock knives have omega springs, right? No omega springs on this guy. So that is one less thing to worry about, which is pretty neat, okay? So you definitely have this one piece here, which moves forward, locks the blade in place, and then you can pull it back to then allow for the close, and also holds the blade in place. But you probably swing this open. Yes, you can. Now, that's probably not going to happen unless you're doing some crazy martial arts or something during your day. Of course, if you're carrying the knife the proper way, right, it should be blade facing the back seam of your pocket. So even that, you know, should help prevent that from happening in any event. So yeah, action's great, super satisfying, ambidextrous friendly knife, amazingly satisfying ease of manipulation with this knife. Now, at first, the only one thing that was throwing me off about this knife was one thing and one thing only, and I was like, you know, I'm a very symmetrical guy, right? Very, very symmetrical guy. So I was like, what is the deal, Brian? What is the deal with that thumb stud on one side? Like, why couldn't you do a thumb stud on both sides? You know, here's the 80-20.5 for reference, right? Being able to use a thumb stud to deploy, also to, you know, reverse flick off of the thumb stud is a thing, or use the hole. But here, you know, you could do it both ways. And again, this one does have a trick up its sleeve. So the thumb stud is not fixed in place, right? So if you think about it, if it was fixed in place, then lefties wouldn't be able to deploy thumb stud wise. So this is pretty neat. So it's all magnetized, right? This is not the most magnet intense knife by any stretch. I think the Factor was definitely have more magnets involved. This one doesn't have magnets in the locking mechanism, only here in the thumb stud. So what I figure out the best way to do this is to kind of use my nail to push the little bar right here. It kind of separates, you know, this little pin section from the magnetic piece of the thumb stud. And then I can sort of squeeze my nail in here, take out this part, right? This is what that looks like. All right, and then there's the actual magnet right here, a nice little circular magnetic piece, which then I can turn around, put it on the other side. By the way, you could totally rock it without a magnet if you wanted to, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you would do that, to be honest. So I'm gonna place it on the other side, and then I'm just gonna slide this pin back in there, and bam, there we go. It is now mounted on the left side. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I could see, again, to me, it was more of a personal preference. It was my OCD kicking in at first. I'm like, you know, it doesn't look right. What's going on? I got a thumb stud on one side and not the other. What's happening? But then, you know, to me, then afterwards, it added personality to the knife. And of course, I would always carry it on the, opposite side, which is why I'm going to take it out here and then just do the switch. But yeah, pretty strong magnet right there, to say the least. Very easy to reverse, no tools necessary, which is pretty nice. And again, for thumb deployment, it works really nice. I didn't find myself, I guess you could technically use your thumb to deploy off of the hole like that, but you don't build the same amount. See, it's not as satisfying to open that way. But off of the thumb stud, you can get some really good action there. Now, as far as reverse flick, right, even without a thumb stud there, right, getting it off of the hole, super satisfying. So yeah, I want to say at first it threw me off completely. I didn't know what to expect there, but it kind of grew on me. It definitely grew on me, and I got over it pretty quick. I didn't find a need for it to be, you know, I kind of tamed down my OCD a little bit after carrying it for a while. And I think to a certain extent, I'm not sure if it helps also, because see, there's no there's no magnetic pull on titanium, right? So I think it's probably based off of, I think the main purpose of the magnet, it being magnetic, is the fact that, it stays in place when you take out the pin, right? It makes it easy so you can switch it around, right? It definitely does have a pull to the blade. So again, that's pretty neat, and I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. So ergonomics on this knife. So definitely a full purchase for sure on the handle. Again, it's a little bit on the tall side, narrow side, but there's no uncomfortable place on this handle at all. Hammering down on it feels good. If you have bigger hands, you should be okay as well. And then you have this section here for a forward choke, which is, that sharpening choil. I saw Neve's nice video because, he came to mind right away. He's not going to have, as a matter of fact, he didn't have an issue with this sharpening choil at all, because you could get a bajillion sharpens out of this knife before you even come close to developing a smile. And then forward choking on it here feels really, really nice, to say the least. Now, you could nitpick, you could say, hey, Brian, you didn't give us any jimping, or maybe some jimping up here would have been nice, especially for this grip right there, something like that. But at that point, again, it's a matter of personal preference. The blade is pretty narrow as we speak, and it's going to be pretty slicey. So you don't want anything on the path of that cut, even if sometimes you might want to kind of grip it this way and things like that. So no jimping there. I didn't notice any jimping anywhere else. Now, where there is jimping is right here on the stealth tab, which, by the way, is nicely jimped in the back and also on top. And it took me a while to sort of get used to it, but the scales have a cutout on both sides. So that allows your index finger to kind of sink in there a little bit below the scale level and then just pull. Like every single time, regardless how much effort you put into it or you don't put into it, you're going to be able to get that flipper to come out like that. And then you can just continue to push down the rest of the way to either deploy or close the knife, which is pretty neat. Again, at the end, it all tucks away, which is, again, really, really nice. Reverse cutting on this thing, good to go. Friday night gas station fighting for your Slurpee, you're good to go. The Pakal grip, right? All the grips are pretty comfortable. And also the back end here is kind of nice and rounded to it, so it doesn't create any sore spots on the palm or anything like that. You could carry this thing very well. And one of the greatest things is, you know, whether you're using gloves or not using gloves or bare hands or whatever you got going on, you should be able to deploy this knife one of the many different ways, which is, again, something to be said about a knife that has multiple deployment options. Is the fact that you get the benefit of whatever you got going on, whether it's just your regular hand or in thick gloves or whatever the case may be, you're just able to deploy it at least one of the many ways available for deployment, which is very, very nice. Now, another thing to talk about this one, the OEM is Bestech. So Bestech definitely doing amazing work right here. I can only imagine Brian being so meticulous about giving the right specifications of, you know, this is exactly what I want. This is how I want it. It needs to be tuned this way. And, you know, back and forth until it goes from a working prototype to a production batch, which is, you know, definitely a lot of, you know, back and forth. And, you know, to come to this point, totally worth it. Totally worth it. And I mean, you could tell me this was React. You could tell me this was, I don't know, Reich. It could tell me it was somebody in the States, Sharp by Design or whoever, right? It don't matter. I mean, it's executed so well. And, you know, all the attention to detail is there. It's ergonomically friendly. It functions well. It delivers on performance. It's fidgety, right, in every single way. And the geometry on this one just simply works, right? If this was any other type of geometry, probably would have looked odd in some sort of way. But I feel like the sheep's foot, right, definitely works for me. You know, it's my kind of blade. I love sheep's foots and Warncliffe all day of the week. And man, am I glad I definitely picked one of these up for myself. I cannot wait. Guys, we have basically what is going to be a contender for knife of 2024. Simple as that. And I'll tell you why. Yes, price-wise, these are a little bit on the pricey side, but I'm going to talk about that because, you know, in a way, you do have to factor in what you're getting. Now, some people out there are going to want to like narrow it down to, you know, just the materials. Well, Miguel, all you're getting is titanium and M390, so it should be a $200 to $250 knife. Well, what about all the, you know, engineering or all the sort of design on being able to make a locking mechanism like this one that works as good as this one, which is patented, by the way. So it's not like any other company is doing this out there anytime soon. If you think about the Axis lock, it just recently expired on Benchmade, so other companies can now do it. Same thing with Spyderco's compression lock, which is why, you know, other companies can now do a similar button lock compression lock like on the RSKAOS. So it takes many years before those patents expire, before other companies can come in and do anything even close, remotely close to what this is. And it's, you know, I don't want anybody saying, you know, it's definitely a copy of a crossbar lock or it's a copy of the Shark lock. I mean, it has enough of its own. The fact that it combines, I mean, it could have taken inspiration from both of those locking mechanisms. At the end of the day, both of them are very ambidextrous friendly, works really good for lefties and righties alike. So it could have very well taken inspiration from that, but it is still its own thing, and that is a very unique mechanism in its own right. So no one has done it just exactly like this, implemented exactly this way, and that is definitely something worth considering for the price. Yes, could you probably get a more you know, bang for the buck, right, if you were just trying to narrow it down to materials? Well, both of these other two knives at around the $250 range. Okay, so if you're just looking at materials alone, you could pick up the Chad from Kunwu or the RSKAOS from Vosteed. But ultimately, though, you're not getting the exact same knife. I mean, these knives are awesome in their own right. And I mean, those two are, basically some of my favorite knives in my collection. But again, you're not getting the exact same knife. It doesn't feel the same. It definitely feels, they feel great and awesome in their own right. But this one, again, it's a whole different sauce. It's kind of like when you have like a really nice cooked dinner, from like a specific cuisine that is cooked well, and you just like, licking your fingers because it's that great. That's kind of what you got going on with this one, right? Very unique. That has to be factored into the price. So please do yourself a favor and do not narrow it down to just materials alone, because if that's the case, then you might as well just get another premium knife in the $200 to $250 to $300 range. So and at that point, if you're above 300, might as well pick up this guy, because it's only a little bit more, and you're getting the stealth lock, which again is only unique to WinterBladeCo for right now. So the price on this one, I want to give you a ballpark, because again, some were actually less money, and some were, I think, maybe a version or two were like $20-ish more, but the ballpark is around $369, right? So I believe this one comes in at $369. There were maybe a version that was a hair more expensive, and then there were other budget versions beneath this one. Now again, as of batch 2, there's only one variant available, and that is that $369 variant. So check it out in the link below. It also depends, again, how far in the future you're watching this video. There's a possibility batch 2 ended and now we're in batch 3. Maybe batch 3 ended and these are not coming back at all, or perhaps they turned to be a production knife. Who knows? All right, so definitely, if it's a knife you're interested on picking up, you might as well pick it up now and again be happy that you did, and not regret it like I did by wanting to pick up a factor back when it was dropping and not doing so, and now I wish I had a factor in my collection. Now the other thing to talk about, price wise, again, I personally put a order on this one. I'm waiting for mine to be delivered, but the moment I got a chance to check out this loaner, right, this is not even my own knife, but even just checking out this loaner right here as a pass around, I'm like, man, it brings about such a satisfying feeling right off the bat. Like, you know what, I made the right decision. I'm glad I pre-ordered mine. Can't wait to get it. It was definitely the right call. So if at any point you had any hesitations for the price, whenever you do actually get this in hand and you start using it, fidgeting with it, deploying it, putting it to work, I mean, I feel like those feelings of, justifying the price or feeling a certain way because of the price, all that's going to go out the window pretty quick, because I don't have a reason to believe that you will be dissatisfied with the knife after having it in your hands, regardless of which price point you picked it up at. So the other thing is, these are likely going to be going in the secondhand market for probably a little bit more eventually when production ends on these knives. So that's another reason why, if you again want to pick one up, you might as well do it now versus trying to pick up one on the secondary market later. The last thing to talk about price-wise is, imagine if these were made in the USA. Now, Brian Winters obviously lives in the US, so he has made some custom knives, custom WinterBladeCos of different kinds here in the US, but he has a limited production in a way, so he can't satisfy the entire nation, country, and even many other countries outside of the US who actually would love to have a knife like this on their hands. So he can only do so many himself. Also with USA production, there's always, the cost of labor, the cost of material, the fact that it's being made here by default already makes it so much higher. Wouldn't be surprised if this knife was at least 2 to 3 times more than what it goes for right now if it were to be made in the US. So, I mean, that's something to consider. So when you go about thinking about, the price, I'm definitely ruling it out because it's too expensive. Perhaps if that thought is going through your head, just kind of think about that, right? And again, the whole idea of the stealth lock, which again is pretty unique, right? Very, very innovative. And again, Brian Winters is the wizard of locking mechanism. This is just, sort of one of many different locking mechanisms that he has created himself. The Factor has a different locking mechanism. There's so many different locking mechanisms that he showcased in the Atlanta Blaze show that I got a chance to recap via other YouTube videos and things like that. It's insane. It's insane. The dude is always innovating, always coming out with new stuff, keeping it fresh. And we're here to enjoy all of that, right? Reap the benefits of having someone like Brian Winters in the community just coming out with amazing stuff like this all the time. And I'm just excited for all the future models to come, because I feel like this is, in a way, just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's probably a lot more innovation, a lot more excitement, and new revolutionary things coming down the pipeline. Again, if you're new to WinterBladeCo, right, you are definitely one that you're definitely probably almost guaranteed you'll fall in love with, because of everything that they have going for it, you know. So you know, the uniqueness, the innovation, the quality, the satisfaction, the acoustics, the performance, everything else in between. So I want to say, I'm trying to think of any negatives I could think of. You know, yes, there is a hole right there that is for the, you know, reversing the pocket clip. I guess there was no other way to, you know, I guess that they could have covered the hole, you know, and, you know, maybe milled it a little bit more, put a screw in there. But, you know, I guess he decided to go that way. I mean, honestly, personally, it doesn't bother me at all. In a way, the Devo nip, you know, kind of sort of did the same thing. So, you know, it's reversible. And then you just have the additional hole there for, you know, in case you wanted to flip it around, you can. Again, not a big deal. Some people are going to be like, oh, my goodness, they could have filled that in. They could have done something. Listen, it works for me. Not a big deal. I originally had the sort of, you know, hesitation about the thumb stud situation, which, as I explained, got over it pretty quick. And even the pocket clip is very, very comfortable. That pocket clip is a solid 9.5 out of 10. Goes in out of the pocket pretty good. Solid tension right there. Titanium milled pocket clip. And if anything, the only other thing I would say, and this is more of a personal preference, not anything negative or anything. It's, if anything, more so for future iterations of this knife. But I know the batch three of the Factor had some milling lines going on, right? As you guys know, right? I am a sucker for milling on a premium knife. I love me some diamond pattern titanium, which I don't think we've seen on a WinterBladeCo knife. I love lines, diagonal lines, milling. So milling in general, whether it be lines or diamonds or squares or frag, whatever it is, right? It's just, I think it would add just a little bit more personality. I would really enjoy it, me personally. But again, that's more of a personal choice, personal desire, if anything. This one, you know, it's nice and smooth. You still have good personality lines and swedges and contouring all around and things like that. So yeah, definitely gets the job done. It's comfortable. I mean, what else is what else is there to say about this knife that I haven't already mentioned? I feel like there's been a long enough ramble already. Hopefully you guys have been able to get value out of this video. If you have, smashing that like button really means a lot to me. I would really, really, really appreciate it. Also, if you like knife and EDC content like this on a daily basis, please make sure to subscribe. I promise you'll be worth coming back for more. And if you want to support the channel a step further, there's a link for a Patreon down below, or you can simply support the channel right here on YouTube by becoming a channel member. You'll get access to exclusive perks. That being said, guys, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this knife, right? Tell me feedback-wise, did you pick one up? Are you planning on picking one up? If you're not, what is the reasons behind it? You know, do you like it? Do you love it? Do you dislike it? We'll love to hear from you guys in the comments. I'll be answering as many comments as I possibly can. If there are any questions I'm unable to answer, there's a chance Brian Winters himself might be in the comment section hanging out down there and maybe answering some questions himself also. I mean, super humble guy, down to earth, super cool to interact with. You know, for as long as I've been talking back and forth with him, he's been the coolest guy ever. And you can also find him on Instagram, WinterBladeCo. I think you can DM him for a corny joke as well. So I don't know if, I'm not sure if he's still doing that or not, but I think that's kind of how I introduced myself. I asked him for a corny joke, and the rest is history. And listen, I'm a huge fan. Like I said at the beginning, I'll keep echoing that from the rooftops. Huge fan of WinterBladeCo, huge fan of everything Brian Winters is putting out there. And I'm excited for this company. I'm excited for where it can go from here, and all the future knives, all the future projects that we are left to see come out from him. So super excited. Love this knife. Again, don't sleep on it. Definitely don't sleep on it. I'll tell you that from my personal experience. It happened to me with the Factor. That dog bit me once, but definitely did not bite me twice. So definitely pick one up or pre-order one if you still have the ability to do so. And just be on the lookout for all the new stuff that WinterBladeCo is putting out there. Super excited for what's to come, guys. That's been the review video. Check out the review video here for the Vosteed RSKAOS, or the review video here for the Kunwu Chad. I'll put video cards on both sides of your screen. If you made it to the end, you are the real MVP. Thank you so much for hanging out with me until the end here, guys. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next video, either this one or this one. Peace.